Hey guys, Jengar here. Welcome to today's realistic review in which we are taking a look at the Liberator, the B-24D-23-CO. It's a long title, but it's a B-24. 5.7 battle rating. And it's a bit of a beastie, isn't it? It's somewhere in between a B-17 and a flying boat. And with turret placement that is quite nice. She misses one turret compared to the B-17, but she seems to be a little bit more sturdy, and she is faster in a dive, quite a bit faster in a dive, so that means that survivability is increased because of speed in a dive, but not because of the amount of turrets and stuff like that. So it's an interesting bomber. It's a little bit higher than the B-17 we reviewed the other day. And I guess it's a little bit in the same category. There's a lot of similarities also in the bomb loads, but there are some differences. For example, in the speeds. But before we begin with the details, if you do enjoy this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment, it really helps out a lot. And if you're not subscribed yet, do subscribe, of course. There's a lot more content on the way. Also, join me on my other channels, my locals channels and my Rumble, and then there is Discord that you can join. Links are all in the description below. So the maximum speed in this plane at sea level without WEP is 373 kilometers an hour, and with WEP 382. At 4500 meters she can take you to 333 without WEP and 345 with. And finally at 6500 meters this is 316 without and 325 with WEP. Now these speeds are an indicated airspeed without mech. These speeds are okay. It's slightly slower than the B-17, so it's not exactly fast. It's not a German Schnellbomber. It is really one of those American flying fortresses, although this one is not in that class, of course. So this one has the nickname Liberator. The top speed in a dive though in this plane is much more interesting, and it is 570 kilometers an hour, which is awesome. That is actually quite a bit faster than the B-17. The B-17 had a maximum dive speed of 490 before the red line, so that's 80 kilometers more in a dive, and that really helps out, I have to say. This one only rips at 625, so you can keep diving at around 600 kilometers an hour. And if you don't make any strange movements, that will usually take you home. So this bomber also has the quality that you can do a first run and you usually make it back for a second run. Now the control stiffening in this plane is not really relevant. Stall speed in the plane is 160, 170. It's a little bit heavier, so it stalls out a little bit earlier. Not that you're gonna get in that situation a lot, but you do sometimes have to make maneuvers when in a fight. So yeah, although for me it still throws off my aim massively, so I really got to work on that gunnery while moving. Is something that you can practice. As I mentioned before in the B-17 video, there is a few expert bomber pilots that can move the plane around like some sort of heavy fighter and use the turrets as guns and then be successful with that and get aces and stuff like that. Hitman used to be in my squadron, is one of those examples. He's awesome. He also has a channel, so if you want to check that out. I do want to say though that that is not easily achieved. I mean, getting masterful in fighters is one thing, and it takes a long time because the learning curve in this game is quite high, but for bombers it's even higher, and what he shows sometimes is magic work. But it's interesting to watch. It is not easy to learn that. It will take time. And yeah, so, but check him out, Hitman, fantastic bomber pilot. Anyway, the firepower in this plane is decent to good. It has 3 double 12.7mm M2 Browning machine guns with 200 and 254 rounds per gun averages. Some guns have a little more, some guns have a little less. Then you also have 5 single 12.7 M2 Browning machine guns, and they have a loadout between 250 and 300 rounds per gun. So these ammo loads are not fantastic, but they are workable. If you tap and don't keep continuously shooting, you will be able to keep shooting, basically. You don't want it to run out. Reload times are nothing out of the ordinary, but still. The ammo load is average, as I said, between 200 and 300 rounds per gun is not great. This plane can also be equipped with bombs, of course. It's a bomber. You can have different loadouts. In the beginning you have a 20 times 100 pound, then you have a 8 times 500 pound, 12 times 500 pound, 8 times 1000 pound, and then 4 times 2000 pounds. Now I usually run with that last load for the base bombing, as I see this plane as a base bomber. Of course, it's a 4-engined massive a bomber that basically is made for bombing bases. And you know, column attacking and CAS is a little bit more difficult with this plane because it's not very maneuverable, now is it? What belts to use? This one has 3 belts for the turrets. The default belt with a tracer shell, an AP shell, an incendiary shell, and an armor piercing incendiary shell. The armored targets belt has 3 times AP and 1 tracer shell, and the universal belt has 3 times armor piercing incendiary and 1 tracer. So that's the options. As you will be firing at air units most of the time, I use the universal belt with the 3 APIs and the tracer shell. The most incendiary in there, you want those fires. Now in this plane the performance, acceleration and energy retention are not great, but it's somewhere average for a bomber, I would say. Not great. The climb rate is also average for a bomber. It's atrocious compared to some of the fighters, but it's average for bombers. Turn time in the plane is atrocious also for bombers, and bad with flaps. Flap trip off at around 370 kilometers an hour. Now overall maneuverability in this bomber is bad. She's a big bird, a big lady, and it's also not possible to roll this bomber over the top. You will start to lose altitude very quickly and it rips something. That's not what you want, so you got to be careful with maneuvering. You can make turns and you can go 90 degrees, but above rolling over the top is difficult and dangerous. The turret placement is decent. It has a good number of turrets, 1 less than the B-17 though, and the turret cover is quite good. It has good cover pretty much everywhere except in the front from the below sector. It doesn't have a double 50 cal there like the B-17, and the cover thus there is a little bit more limited than in the B-17. In the B-17 you can usually throw out 2 turrets that way, 2 double turrets, but not in this one. It will only be the single one and a single 50 cal. So there is some weaknesses in this cover, but all in all she is still quite a sturdy plane, and will usually take you home for a second run. The overheating in this plane is bad. It's manageable, but it cools off easily, so yeah, it's manageable in this plane. I only had 1 flap here, by the way, so you can see me, and I didn't see it. I was looking at the airfield where I was going, so, and then I stopped tapping right because I was adjusting, and then I just lost control, unfortunately. But yeah, keep an eye out on those flaps when you're damaged, right? The durability in this plane is good. It can take a lot of damage. Good survivability in the plane. Sturdy. Yeah, you just don't want to be hit in the wrong place, but she can do a job. She is quite good in the durability department. There is a repair cost, of course. It's 9,390 Silver Lions, which is about average for this battle rating, 5.7. The rewards in the plane give you for the research points a 344% modifier with a 1.72 multiplier, which is about average, I would say. Comparatively at a 5.7 battle rating, and the Silver Lion modifier is 375% with a 2.5 multiplier, which is very good. So this is a Silver Lion grinding monster that can get you a lot of results when it comes to that. If you can get 1 run in, you will already run quite a good profit. If you can do 2 runs, and you can complete them, not like this where your enemy team has basically wiped your team and that you're the only one left, because they will eventually just come for you, right? It is what it is. You could still get this. I mean, you could still get one of these guys, but the firepower at 5.7 and in up tiers especially 6.7 is quite damaging in the way of firepower of the enemy fighters. So it is a difficult place to be for a bomber in the end. And even though this plane has a lot going for it, it is also a big target that is difficult to defend against these fighters with your double 50 cals. You would want quadruple 50 cals in some of these turrets preferably, but that is just not the case, unfortunately. It would maybe also make them a little bit too dangerous for fighters to approach, as most people still approach them in a way where you can really do damage, especially if you get if you play them a lot and you get fluent in the aim department. Which unfortunately I didn't get a hit in on this plane, because otherwise I would have gotten him, as he basically ripped himself apart in the dive there. Now the base bomber play style is really for this plane. This is a base bomber. It is not maneuverable. The smaller loads are okay. You could use them for the purpose, but of CAS, close air support, but it is not doable in this plane. Or maybe it's doable, but it is not easy when it comes to that. And you're really a sitting duck at this altitude, although you will of course have to do this once you get a reload. Trying to climb doesn't really help a lot, it's not really working. So we do get him a fire. Fire! Kill and attack! Let's go! But overall this bomber is quite nice to fly. It is awesome, and it has a lot of history to it, of course, the Liberators. You should read a little bit about it if you haven't. It's very interesting. These bomber crews, man, they were heroes. Hey guys, so here we are after the match. Now to continue on that narrative, the heroes of the bomber crews. There was a lot of casualties in the bomber crews. There was a lot of how do you call that? The casualty rate or whatever. The percentage of people making it back was not that good. And you were quite lucky if you could do your run. I think it was, what was it, 24 runs or 25 runs you had to do mission wise, and then you could go home for the bombers. I think for the fighters it was 50 missions, but in the American Air Force, I don't remember exactly, don't shoot me down on that. I think it was 25 missions for the bombers, but correct me if I'm wrong. And if you got to that amount of missions, you could go home. But not a great percentage of pilots and crew made it to that amount of missions. So it was really heroic stuff to go into a bomber crew and try to do your duty there. As for the Liberator, it's a great plane, the B-24. It is a tough nut, and you do have a lot of guns, and you do have quite a nice speed in a dive. 80 kilometers more than the B-17, so that is handy to try to get you home after your first bomb run, and a second run is usually almost guaranteed if your team doesn't completely fold, and then you can do a second run and you can go for a column, or you can go to finish off some bases. The trick is sometimes on many maps you have two 2,000 pounders and they don't quite finish off the base. There's a little sliver of health left on the base. It's quite annoying. I don't want to take out 8,000 pound bombs and then use 5 to kill the base and then use 3 on another base. I prefer to throw out the 2,000 pound bombs and get 2 bases almost, and then do a second run on them. It does give you the most bombing points in any case. But yeah, there's something to say for that. It's not ideal. On some if you are in a down tier, you usually kill the base with 2,000 pound bombs. So there is that. But all in all, I love the looks of this thing. It's quite a beastie plane, quite beefy, and interesting battle rating. When you get up tiered, it's quite rough. The enemy planes do carry a lot of armaments that does destroy bombers quite fast. So I usually go into a dive and then try to aim, but and that works quite often, as with the Spitfire in the clip. But yeah, I guess I'll have to learn that maneuvering, firing, and be accurate that way, because I'm sure that I could shoot down a lot more, but if I was just more accurate with the guns. And I'm not bad at it. You could do worse, but yeah, I'm definitely not at the master level yet when it comes to aiming gunnery in bombers. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do check her out. She's a lovely plane. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button, become part of this community. If you are already a subscriber, don't forget to like the video, do leave me a comment, and if you really feel like helping out today, make sure to share the video with your friends and let them know about the channel.